There it was, perched sideways on the sink like a smug little lie. Her electric toothbrush. You don't leave your toothbrush behind if you're planning to leave someone forever, right? I stared at it for a good 5 minutes, arms crossed, towel still wrapped around my waist, toothpaste foam drying in the corners of my mouth like I'd just lost a fight with a cappuccino machine. 3 days ago, she asked for a divorce, said it calmly, like she was canceling cable. We didn't scream. We didn't cry. We sat on opposite ends of the couch and talked about being adults and giving each other grace. She even made a Spotify playlist the next morning called Conscious Uncoupling. I thought that was a joke. It wasn't. She moved out 2 days later, packing with the speed and precision of a woman who had clearly rehearsed this. Labeled boxes, a suitcase already zipped, the cat food already in a grocery bag with a post-it that read, "Just until I find a pet-friendly place." But the toothbrush stayed. And for some reason, that made me feel like I was the insane one. Because you don't forget your toothbrush unless you're coming back, right? I know how this sounds. But when you've been married for 8 years, and the person you built your entire life around walks away with less emotion than a grocery clerk handing you change, your brain starts clinging to anything. So yes, I stared at that toothbrush like it was a prophecy. I didn't throw it out, I just moved it to the drawer. Later that night, I found her Spotify still logged into the kitchen speaker. Her playlist had updated. The last added song? I Want to Be Yours by Arctic Monkeys. I clicked play, half angry, half desperate, and the music started, slow and low. I want to be your vacuum cleaner, breathing in your dust. I stood in the dark kitchen listening to lyrics she never once mentioned liking in 8 years of marriage. Was this a message? A leftover feeling? A taunt? Or was it just a song? I didn't sleep that night. And the next morning, I found something else. A second toothbrush, hidden behind the towels in the guest bathroom. Different color. Not mine. Not hers. That was the moment something inside me changed, because that brush had clearly been used. I didn't touch the second toothbrush right away, just stood there in the guest bathroom, door half closed, towel slipping off my shoulder, staring at this worn-out blue Oral-B like it had personally betrayed me. My brain cycled through possibilities like a detective piecing together a cold case. Maybe it was from a guest. Maybe it was old. Maybe she used it as a backup. But none of those theories held up, and I knew it. It wasn't the toothbrush itself, it was what it represented. That there had been another mouth brushing alongside ours, another body walking through this house using my bathroom, my towels, my toothpaste. While I was designing logos in the upstairs office, some other man was flossing in my mirror. I didn't confront her, not yet. Something told me I needed to be smarter. So instead, I made coffee, opened my laptop like it was a regular day, and started doing what I do best. Overthinking in silence. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with more than just the toothbrush. There were small things, things that hadn't registered before. Our bed had started smelling different weeks ago. Not bad, just not hers. She'd started sleeping on the very edge of the mattress, and her scent disappeared faster every morning. Her car's glove box had a new air freshener, Vanilla Orchid. She always hated vanilla. I only noticed it because she left the car keys on the counter before she moved out, saying she wouldn't need the Subaru anymore. Oddly specific. I finally opened the Notes app on her old iPad. I don't know why. Maybe part of me was looking for a grocery list to cling to, something to remind me of our routines. Instead, I found one note, just one, titled Exit Plan. My heart nearly burst through my chest. I opened it, half expecting a list of reasons why I was a terrible husband. But it wasn't that. It was instructions, bullet points. Start sleeping away more, he notices everything. Leave second toothbrush by February. Plant needing space idea during wine night. Make it feel like his choice. Don't forget, his mother calls every Thursday. Use that time. Tell T to wait until March. I sat frozen, not breathing, just rereading the last line like it would change the more I looked at it. Tell T to wait until March. The toothbrush wasn't a leftover. It was a breadcrumb, a signal, a stupid, careless marker left behind by someone who thought I wouldn't notice. And for weeks, I didn't. But now I saw the whole thing unraveling behind her careful smiles and graceful exits. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I just shut the iPad, stood up, and walked into our bedroom, my bedroom, and opened every drawer, every closet. I wanted to see what else she thought I wouldn't find. And I did find something, not a diary, not lingerie, a tooth. Yes, an actual human molar. Inside a tiny zip bag, tucked in a jewelry box I hadn't opened in years. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something stranger, deeper, maybe even darker. I didn't sleep that night. The house felt hollow in a way it never had before, like the walls were holding their breath. I sat in the living room with the lights off, that little plastic bag sitting on the coffee table in front of me, the tooth inside catching the faint street light that bled through the blinds. I kept staring at it, like it might start explaining itself if I just looked long enough. Who keeps a tooth? Not a baby one, not a kid's. This was adult-sized. Heavy, yellowed at the root. It didn't make sense, and the less sense it made, the less I could think about anything else. Sometime around 3 in the morning, I noticed something else in the box I'd pulled it from. A small, folded receipt, barely visible beneath a tangled chain. The paper was faded, but I could still make out the logo, Miller's Locksmith, Hanover Street, dated 3 weeks before she asked for the divorce. The same date I realized that matched one of the calendar notifications I'd seen pop up on her phone. Appointment, 4 p.m. I thought it was a spa thing. I Googled the place. It was real. Small shop about 30 minutes outside town. Open since the 70s, no website, just a phone number. I didn't call. Instead, I drove there the next morning. The place looked exactly how you'd picture it. Dusty window, neon keys made here. Sign flickering, smell of metal and old coffee. Behind the counter stood an older man, maybe in his 60s, with oil-stained hands and a tired expression that said he'd seen a lifetime of people making bad decisions. "Help you?" he asked, barely looking up. I slid the receipt across the counter. "I think my wife came here a few weeks ago," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just need to know what she had done." He looked at the receipt, squinted, then at me. "Yeah, I remember her. Tall woman, green coat, nervous. Asked for 3 duplicates, said it was for her new office." He paused, his brow tightening. "But she didn't bring the original key, said someone would drop it off later. That part was weird." "Someone?" I asked. "Yeah. Some guy came in maybe a day after. Didn't say much. Just handed me a key and left." My stomach twisted. "Do you remember what he looked like?" "Tall. Younger than you. Maybe late 20s. Tattoo on his hand. Snake, I think." A snake. That word alone made my blood go cold. Because 3 months earlier, at Calla's company Christmas party, I'd met one of her consultants. His name was Theo, charming, loud, the kind of guy who leaned in too close when he talked. On his left hand, just below the thumb, he had a black snake tattoo curling into a rose. I remembered because she once joked about how symbolic it was. The snake and the rose, chaos and beauty. I thanked the locksmith, walked out, and sat in my car for 10 straight minutes without starting it. The snow on the windshield melted into a slow pattern that looked like veins. I thought about the extra toothbrush, the secret notes, the iPad plan, the tooth. And now, Theo. T. Everything clicked, but if she'd been planning to run off with him, why leave all this behind? Why leave the keys, the iPad, the tooth? I drove home, trying to tell myself I was overreacting, but that idea didn't last long. When I walked into the house, I noticed something new. The kitchen door was unlocked. I never leave it that way. The lights were off, but the air felt different, like someone had been inside. Then I saw it. On the counter. The toothbrush. The one I'd thrown in the drawer, standing upright, dry. and beside it, a single almond. I don't know why, but that broke me. It was like every tiny, meaningless object in this house was conspiring to remind me that I didn't understand my own life anymore. And then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone to Hanover Street." That's all it said. No name, no emoji, no punctuation, just that. And for the first time since this started, I realized something terrifying. Maybe this wasn't about betrayal anymore. Maybe it was about control, and I was already too far in to stop whatever was coming next. I didn't move for a long time after reading that text. I just stood there, phone in one hand, almond in the other, trying to convince myself that this was a prank, a stupid coincidence. Maybe the locksmith mentioned me to someone. Maybe they saw my plates. Maybe... No. Someone had been inside my house. That wasn't a guess anymore. It was fact. The toothbrush wasn't where I left it. The almond hadn't been there when I left that morning. And the door was definitely locked before I drove to Hanover Street. That meant someone had a key. One of the duplicates. I checked every room, closets, basement, attic. I opened drawers, looked behind curtains, even checked the crawl space under the stairs, and found nothing. But I felt watched. Like the house itself was holding something back. A tremble had settled in my hands, one I couldn't shake. I wasn't a paranoid person, but this wasn't paranoia. This was real. This was calculated. That night I locked all the doors, slid furniture in front of the back entry, and kept the lights on in every room. I should have called someone, the police, a friend, anyone. But I didn't. I told myself I needed to understand the full picture first. I needed answers before I let this become something irreversible. But the truth was, I didn't know who I could trust anymore. So I sat down at my desk, pulled out the USB I'd found in the box with the tooth, and plugged it in. My heart was pounding. I half expected some virus to pop up, a corrupted screen, maybe even a blank drive. But no. There were 4 folders, each named after a month: October, November, December, pending. Inside October, there were 8 audio files, each one labeled like journal entries: October 3rd, October 6th, October 10th, and so on. I opened the first one and pressed play. At first, just silence. Then a rustle. Then her voice. Kala. October 3rd, subject unaware, audio quality holding, adjusted microphone placement to corner shelf. He doesn't notice anything. Still predictable. Still dull. She laughed, a low, almost clinical chuckle. Today he asked if I wanted Thai or pizza, logged as habitual indecision masking emotional passivity, no eye contact when speaking. Noted. I paused the file. I had to. My skin went ice cold. My wife, the woman I'd shared my home, my bed, my stupid little routines with, had been recording me. Not just secretly, but like she was studying me, dissecting my behaviors like I was some kind of specimen. I opened another one. October 10th. He caught me texting Theo and looked suspicious. I smiled, offered to make coffee. He smiled back. Classic conflict deflection. The performance remains effective. Another file, October 22nd. Theo thinks I should speed things up. I don't disagree. The subject is showing early signs of emotional withdrawal. He's been more distant. Good. That means the distancing is working. Step 3 may be ahead of schedule. Step 3. What the hell was Step 3? I clicked into the pending folder. There was only one file, untitled. I opened it, and this time the voice wasn't hers. It was a man's. Calm, measured, unfamiliar. This will serve as the final entry. If the subject finds this recording, protocol is in motion. Do not interfere. Do not reach out to her. Observation must continue from a distance. Integration begins once detachment is complete. What was this? A script? A game? A cult? Was I part of some psych experiment? A documentary? Or was this just something else entirely? Something no one would believe if I told them? I ripped the USB from the port and backed away from the desk like it might explode. Nothing made sense. I was no longer wondering if she cheated. That almost felt innocent compared to what I was uncovering. No, this was something far more invasive, intimate, terrifying. And then I remembered. The iPad. The old one I'd shoved in a drawer. If the USB had that much, maybe the iPad had more. I opened it. It was dead. I charged it, waited, pacing, clicking my knuckles until the screen lit up. When it did, a notification appeared immediately. A calendar reminder set for today at 10:30 p.m., just 5 minutes from now. Initiate Phase 4, if unrecovered. Unrecovered? Unrecovered from what? I stared at the glowing screen, my breath shallow, the lights in the room flickering slightly, like the voltage had dipped. And then, from somewhere in the house, it wasn't the wind, I heard something fall, soft, deliberate. A creak followed it. Floorboards upstairs. I was supposed to be alone. The sound came from the hallway just above me. Slow, deliberate, like someone testing the strength of each floorboard with their heel. I didn't move at first. I just stood in the glow of the iPad screen, staring up at the ceiling like the drywall might split open and give me some kind of answer. Another creak, this time closer to the stairs. I took one step back, then another. I was wide awake, fully alert. But my body felt like it was moving underwater. My ears were ringing. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt fear like that. Not fear of being hurt, but the kind where reality starts to bend and twist, and you're not sure if you've already lost your mind. My phone was still on the counter. I didn't grab it. I don't even think I thought about it. I just moved, silent, barefoot, toward the hallway. The lights were on. I'd left every bulb glowing, like that would keep me safe. It didn't. There's a type of fear that makes even light feel useless. I reached the base of the stairs. Every part of me screamed not to go up, but I did. 1 step, 2, 12. I reached the landing, and the air felt heavier. Not cold, but dense, like the hallway had been sealed off from the rest of the house. All the doors were closed except mine, the bedroom at the end. It was open just a few inches, enough to see the edge of the bed. There was no sound now, not a creak, not a footstep, nothing. I walked forward, the floor soft beneath me, like the wood didn't want to make a noise. I pushed the door open with my fingertips. Slowly, nothing. The room was exactly how I left it. Blanket folded, window shut, closet doors mirrored and closed. But I noticed something new on the bed. A single object perfectly centered on the comforter. The tooth. The same tooth from the bag. Except now it wasn't in plastic. It was just there. Sitting on the blanket like someone had gently placed it there and wanted me to find it. I felt the nausea rise before I even stepped into the room. But I did. I approached the bed, looked at the tooth. Same yellowed root, same cracked enamel. I didn't touch it. Then I saw the second object just beyond it, nearly blending into the folds of the comforter. A photograph. It was a printed photo, glossy, small, no border, black and white. Me, sleeping. The angle was close, too close, like it was taken from the side of the bed. My eyes were shut, mouth slightly open. I was on my side, just how I sleep every night. The blanket was positioned exactly how I leave it. This wasn't a picture taken weeks ago. This wasn't something old. This was recent. Because on the bedside table, in the photo, was a water bottle I'd only started using 2 days ago. Someone had been in my room. Someone had stood right beside me and photographed me. That's when the air left my body. I staggered back, dropped the photo, and my foot hit something. Soft. A shift in the rug. I looked down and saw the edge of the closet door was no longer aligned with the floor. It had been moved. I stared at it for what felt like minutes. My hands were shaking, but I reached forward and pulled it open. Nothing. Just clothes, shoes, jackets. And then I noticed the coat, the green coat, the one Calla always wore. I hadn't seen it since she left. She said she took it with her, but here it was, hung neatly, too neatly, like it had never been worn, like it had been placed, not stored. And in the pocket, her phone, still logged in, still charged. I pulled it out with trembling fingers, thumbprint still active. It unlocked immediately. No passcode. Maybe she never thought I'd see it again. Maybe she wanted me to. The home screen had one app open, minimized. Voice memos. I tapped it. There were dozens of recordings, none of them labeled, all time-stamped from the last 2 months. I tapped the most recent one. He's beginning to question. The subject is more aware than expected. This could accelerate integration. Theo disagrees. He believes Keaton will resist Phase 4. I believe he won't. He's exhausted. He's ready to believe anything if it means it will stop. I tapped another. The tooth worked. Emotional trigger confirmed. The photograph was placed. Physical closeness did not wake him. Sedation worked. Minimal dose. He will not remember. He never remembers. I dropped the phone. My knees almost gave out. This wasn't betrayal. This wasn't even surveillance. This was conditioning. They had been testing me, recording me, drugging me, watching how I reacted to fear, to isolation, to confusion. But why? What was the end goal? What was integration? And more terrifying than all of that, why didn't I remember being sedated? My phone buzzed from downstairs again. Another message. Same unknown number. Phase 4 has begun. Please cooperate. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands wouldn't move. Because just then from the closet, behind the coats, I heard the quietest inhale. Not mine. Not from a speaker. Someone was still in there. The human brain does something strange when it encounters something it shouldn't. It hesitates. It doesn't jump to action. It pauses, like it's waiting for the rest of reality to catch up and say, "No, no, you're wrong. That wasn't a breath. That wasn't movement. It was just the air shifting, just the floor settling." But I knew. That inhale was real. It was soft, wet, and close. The kind of sound you can't unhear once your ears catch it. The kind of sound that rewrites your understanding of safe. I took a step back from the closet, not fast, not slow, like I was trying to move through a dream without waking something up. My foot hit the edge of the rug again. I wanted to run, I wanted to scream, but some dumb, broken part of me still needed to know who was in there. Why? How long? I reached for the closet door again, fingers trembling, and with one sudden pull, yanked it wide open. There was a man, not crouched, not hiding, standing, tall, pale, dressed in black. He didn't flinch, he didn't speak, just stood there behind the coats, like a coat himself, like he had been standing there the entire time, waiting for me to finally open the door far enough to see all of him. I stumbled back, hitting the dresser behind me. He stepped out slowly. Not aggressive, calm, purposeful. His eyes were the worst part, not wide, not angry, just empty. Like looking into a person who had replaced all his thoughts with someone else's instructions. "What do you want?" I said. My voice cracked on the last word. I hated how weak it sounded. He tilted his head, just slightly, like a machine running a diagnostic. "You're awake earlier than scheduled," he said, voice low, unhurried. "Integration hasn't stabilized." "What does that even mean? Who are you? Why are you in my house?" He didn't answer. He took one slow step forward, then another. I reached for the lamp on the nightstand, yanked the cord out of the wall, ready to swing if I had to. But he stopped. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "You need to understand that. We're not here to hurt you." "We?" Another step. I raised the lamp higher. "Where is Calla?" "She succeeded," he said plainly. "Better than projected. You didn't fracture. You fixated. That's rare. That's valuable." "I don't know what you're talking about. None of this makes sense." He paused, then gestured toward the phone I had dropped. "You were chosen because of your behavioral consistency. That's what made the environment ideal. You create patterns. You follow rules. You trust structures. What the hell are you people testing me for?" He studied me for a long moment. Then, and this part I still can't explain, he smiled, just a little, like he'd finally been given permission. "We weren't testing you. We were testing what can be installed in people like you." My mouth went dry. "Installed?" He nodded once. "Behavioral feedback loops, stress response decay, emotional override. If we can predict your reactions, we can replace your instinct. You stop resisting. You begin aligning. That's what Phase 4 is. Integration isn't memory loss, it's memory surrender. You're insane. No, you're early. He glanced at the iPad on the floor. We gave you more resistance than most. You took longer to crack. That's good. It means the override won't need to be as aggressive. He turned toward the hallway as if finished, as if I was a task he had just completed. Wait, I said, not sure why. My voice didn't even sound like mine anymore. Where's Calla? He paused at the doorway. She was the first, you're the 8th. And then he left. Just like that. No fight, no struggle. Just walked down the stairs and out the back door, which somehow, despite my barricade, now stood wide open. I stood there alone, lamp still in my hand, breathing like I'd just run a marathon through fog. I waited for sirens, for alarms, for some noise to remind me that the outside world was still real, but there was nothing, only silence, only me. I didn't sleep that night, not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. Every time I sat still, I could feel something moving in the corners of the house. Not footsteps, not creaks, but something internal, like the walls were adjusting to fit a new shape, a new version of me. And when the sun finally came up, I found something waiting for me in the living room, a manila envelope. On it, one line written in black ink. To be opened once detachment is complete. I stared at the envelope for longer than I care to admit. It sat there on the coffee table, perfectly centered like it had been measured into place. The handwriting was sharp, exact, not Calla's, not anyone I recognized. It wasn't scrawled or rushed. It was the kind of penmanship that belonged to a person who'd written that exact phrase many, many times before. To be opened once detachment is complete. It didn't even feel like my living room anymore. The furniture looked wrong, like someone had nudged it just slightly while I was sleeping, rotating everything by a few degrees so I wouldn't notice at first, only to realize slowly that nothing was where I left it, that something had been inside the house longer than I knew, watching, reorganizing, preparing. I picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it should have, like it contained more than just paper. I brought it to the dining table and opened it slowly, holding my breath. Inside, there were 3 items: a folded letter, a photograph, a single brass key with the number 19 etched into it. I laid them out carefully. My hands were shaking, but I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. I unfolded the letter first. It was typed, no greeting, no sign-off. Just block text, one paragraph after another, as cold and factual as a user manual. If you are reading this, your psychological resistance has reached the acceptable collapse threshold. Your emotional anchors have eroded. Your timeline has accelerated. You are no longer categorized as unsure. You are now ready. You are not the subject. You are the vessel. The protocol was never designed to measure your suffering. It was designed to transfer it. Your patterns, loyalty, confusion, shame, doubt, all served as containers. We needed to find out how much trauma a person could carry without breaking, how far reality could be warped before memory rewrites itself to adapt. Calla was the pilot program. She succeeded. She did not break. She detached. She was integrated. You are her test case. You are the proof of concept. You are now eligible to continue the cycle. Find your next subject. Introduce them to familiarity. Bond. Then break. Observe. Document. Deliver the result. Return here. Room 19. That was it. I read the letter 5 times, each time slower than the last. My mind was trying to protect me, still clinging to some last scrap of logic, a prank, an ARG, some deranged art collective trying to lure me into their cult. But deep down I knew none of this was fiction, because I recognized the photograph. It was a candid, taken through a window, probably from a long lens. The subject, a woman in her 30s, brunette, sitting alone at a bus stop downtown, staring at the street like she'd been standing still for 100 years. I didn't know her name, but I knew the look on her face. I'd worn it myself, 3 weeks ago, before the almond jar, before the second toothbrush, before the tooth and the whisper in the closet. This woman wasn't just anyone, she was my next. The envelope didn't say it directly. It didn't need to. That's what the key was for. Room 19, wherever it was, that's where it would happen again. A cycle, a method, a structure that used grief like currency, a system built on the slow erosion of trust. It made me wonder, how many of us were out there? How many callous? How many Keatons? How many people had read the same letter in different fonts, different cities, different homes that looked just like mine? That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I sat with the key in my hand and imagined a door I hadn't found yet. I couldn't tell what terrified me more, the idea that I was meant to hurt someone the way I had been hurt, or the growing, echoing part of my mind that wanted to. Because here's the thing no one tells you about being broken. Once you've been dismantled that completely, the idea of doing it to someone else doesn't feel cruel. It feels fair. I didn't move for hours. I sat in the dark, the envelope empty now, its contents spread across the table like evidence in a case no one would ever believe. The letter, the photo, the key, the words. Find your next subject. I kept staring at her face. The woman at the bus stop. She looked so ordinary. That was the cruelest part. She could have been anyone, a librarian, a barista, a mother, a person just trying to get through the fog of life without slipping too far into it. I started wondering who had chosen her, who had taken that photo. Had she done something to deserve this? Or was that even part of the equation? The key was warm in my hand now. Brass, etched with 19, but heavier than metal. It felt like it had mass beyond physics, like it carried memory, history. I held onto it until sunrise. Then I stood. I got dressed. I put the key in my pocket, and I drove. I didn't know where room 19 was. The letter gave no address, no coordinates. But some part of me knew it wasn't a place. It was a choice, a test, one final threshold. I parked downtown near the edge of the business district, a row of old buildings with numbered doors and faded bricks. I walked past room 7, room 11. Then I stopped. Room 19, a plain black door, brass handle, no window, no noise behind it. I took out the key, and I just stood there. The weight of everything, the recordings, the conditioning, the intrusion into my life, my mind. It all pulsed behind my eyes. The system was brilliant in its cruelty. It took people like me, people who needed patterns, who depended on structure to keep themselves upright, and it broke us in ways we wouldn't recognize until we were already rebuilt. And then it gave us a door, a task, a way to make it all make sense, a reason, a purpose. I stared at the key, then at the woman's photo. She was still sitting, still unaware. And in that moment, something I hadn't felt in months cut through the fog. Clarity. No one saved me. No one pulled me out. No one intervened. So maybe that was the point. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be someone else's subject anymore. Maybe I wasn't supposed to become their handler either. Maybe I was supposed to choose something different. So I put the key back in my pocket. I didn't open the door. I didn't follow the instructions. I walked away. I drove home. I opened every window in the house. I made coffee that tasted like nothing but felt like something. I deleted the recordings, smashed the USB. I lit a match and burned the letter, one page at a time, watching the edges curl like dry leaves in the fall. I went to the mirror and looked at myself. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I saw my own eyes looking back. Not someone else's idea of who I was supposed to be. Not a reflection carved by surveillance and grief. Just me. Broken maybe, but mine. I found Kalla's number. I didn't text her. I didn't call. But I saved the number under a new name. Let Go. That night I slept with the door open. No noise machine, no lights, no fear, just sleep. The real kind. the kind you earn after choosing not to become the monster that made you.